On this episode of Ambition Alcove, we have Blake Davidson. He is a friend of mine, and he's a fellow entrepreneur, and he has started up a car detailing company. And in this episode, we talk about quite a bit. We talk about quite a lot of things, and every time we get together and hang out, it's always a good conversation. So I hope that this episode can provide you with some level of entertainment or knowledge, and we'll go ahead and get started. So here we go. Yeah. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Ambition Alcove. No, I'm just kidding. We don't need to do that.
What do you do for a living? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have some little cute voice effects.
That's fun.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to be a hamster.
Yeah, I don't know if yours has it, yeah. So I've been having fun with that and playing around. Yeah.
Anyway, whenever you say something cool, you could just click that. People applaud.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are these actually buttons? Oh, they're like touch pads.
Yeah, it's just a pad.
That's right.
Anyway, yeah.
I can tell you've been practicing a lot.
I thought that would just be kind of a fun thing to show. But yeah. How do you feel overall about being on camera? What is that like? Is that kind of, are you nervous being on camera right now, or do you feel like?
I think I'm more nervous because just of the whole thing in general. Like this is like the first time we're like going at it, you know.
Yeah.
Like I want to make sure we do good and share good stuff, and I don't say anything stupid. And
yeah,
I don't like when we were doing. I think it was when you were doing a recording for me or something, and I was like on camera and had to look at the camera. That just makes me uncomfortable because I'm like,
right.
I want to look anywhere else right now but the camera, but I got to look at the camma. So when it's over there, it's not as bad.
Okay, that's good.
It's like we're just having a conversation,
Yeah,
kind of.
absolutely. That's
Except
the
that I
feel
can just hear myself weirdly in my ears, but that's no big deal.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm not going to do any like super official intro. I think I could probably just do that later. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and introduce you today. So today we have Blake on the podcast, Blake Davidson. And so why don't you go ahead and just give us a little background about what you do and who you are?
Well, how far back do you want me to go?
Let's see.
One day in 1997. No. I mean, I'm originally from California. I moved to Florida 6 years ago in June. I worked a bunch of different crazy jobs. My wife still makes fun of me for that. She's like, you were all over the place. I'm like, I know. I just was trying to figure out what I like to do. But yeah, I think in 2021 was when I first started like the real step of being an entrepreneur. I was working with my dad at the time and doing home inspections and bouncing all around. And then I think I came across on YouTube actually videos of guys detailing and actually having like a legitimate detailing business. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Like I've always loved cars. Like I think I could do that, you know? And then my dad actually, he bought a new truck and he gave me his old truck because I just sold my car. And I got in and I'm like, it's a work truck for like 15 years. And so I'm like, I'm going to clean this thing. And I started cleaning. I was like, this is cool. Like this is a different color than it was before. And so I just got into detailing. And then from there, I was like, I could do this, you know? And so when business slowed down with all the stuff I was doing and I wasn't getting enough work, I was like, all right, this is it. I'm going to go for it. So January of that year, I started Armour Detailing. And then, yeah, it's been 2.5 years since then.
Okay.
We're still going.
So you've been the proud owner of Armour Detailing for you said 2.5 years?
Yeah.
2.5 years.
A little over.
So one of the things I actually had on my questions here is, was the entrepreneurial process for you to get to where you are now, did you always kind of have that desire or did you fall into it? Because it kind of sounds like you just kind of fell into it and stumbled upon it. So did you always want to own a business or what was that like?
Yeah, I think I did. It was kind of like, you know, you and I were talking, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and you were saying, like, when you were young, you're like, I just want to own a business, you know? I don't know what it means, but I just want to do it. I mean, I grew up in kind of an entrepreneurial home to some degree. My mom's been a real estate agent for 25 years ish or so. So she was always kind of in somewhat self-employed. And then my dad, you know, he had some jobs, carpentry stuff, but then he started 2 of his own businesses. And so I was just like, I had seen it happen around me and go, okay, this is possible. Like they're doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that was definitely a catalyst for me diving into it. But yeah, at the time I wasn't thinking about it much. It was like, I had always had ideas, you know, my roommate and I in college, man, we were always like, what can we do? Like, there's gotta be something we could do to make money. And we all had all these ideas and crazy things. So yeah, I would say it's definitely always been a desire for me. And I've always had that entrepreneurial mindset of wanting to build and wanting to create and wanting to, you know, make something, you know, whether out of nothing or change something and, you know, develop stuff. So I've always had that. And then it was just, I think it's definitely the Lord's timing when I came across like detailing and was like, I could do this. And then it would just join together and there we are.
Cool. Yeah. I think it's really cool that you had family that was also kind of in that space because it kind of took the fear factor. I mean, it sounds like it wasn't as big of it wasn't as scary because you saw your family kind of doing it. And so it wasn't like a completely new grounds or anything like that. So that's a cool, that's pretty cool. So, awesome. Well, Emma's phone keeps trying to connect to this.
Oh, I was going to say.
Oh no, I hope it didn't stop recording. That's why we have that. That's our backup.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry, I just got a phone call and someone's calling me. But I'm getting used to this.
Water time.
I'm getting used to the whole podcast thing as well as literally episode 1. So
that's good. It's much less nerve-wracking or scripted. You know, it's not, you hear a podcast and you're like, man, they got that all right. And it's like, no.
Right.
You can play around with it.
Yeah. So, So, okay, yeah, so let's talk about this. What was it like when you started Armour Detailing? What was that process like starting up? Was it like you already had family who have been entrepreneurs, so, you know, I guess that helped kind of push that, but it could still be scary, you know? So what was it like when you started up, and were you scared, or like kind of walk us through that?
I'm still scared sometimes on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was scrappy to say the least. I once I had gotten into it and realized, okay, this is a thing. And I was watching YouTube videos like crazy, just trying to learn the process and procedure and the business side of it and all that. And I'd see all these guys that had, you know, massive trailers or vans and huge detail shops. And I'm like, dude, that's so sick. I want to do that one day. But all I had was an '04 Nissan Titan with the good old Nissan rust stripes over the hood, and that was it. And so I was like, all right. And so I got some HDX bins from Home Depot and put all my detail stuff in there, and I yanked the back seats out, and I was literally like, and I got some magnets that said Armour Detailing and some others, my phone number, whatever, and stuck them on the side. And like that, you know, that was the start of it. I actually had a buddy of mine. And he and his wife had a detailing company at one point. They were doing a lot more boats and stuff. And so before I had really like decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do, I called him and I messaged him or whatever. And I was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? And he texted me back and was like, dude, it's a great industry. Like, it's a good way to make money. You could do it. You can, you know, all this stuff. And since he had moved on to becoming a firefighter, he had all this detail stuff. And so he's like, hey, you can use all the stuff I have until you get your own. And like, that's what got me started, because I wasn't making much money at the time. And I was like, man, I don't have this like extra $500 to $1,000 to buy a bunch of equipment and chemicals and everything. So he gave me this like old electric pressure washer that would like constantly turn on and off whenever it wanted to, and just like all this stuff. But it was awesome because it's what got me started actually doing it and learning the process. And then from there, it was just a matter of trial and error. I mean,
so when you started, did you ever have anybody who was advising you not to pursue that, or did you have anybody who was like against the entrepreneurial mindset or anything like that? Because My age, like I talk to a lot of friends my age, and it seems like there's a lot of voices that are always kind of pushing them to, have some kind of security or, like one of my friends, I won't name them, but their parents are like, oh, you should get a job for the county, and because it's safe and economy proof and da 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 da. And it's like, so did you ever have any of that of people kind of trying to guide your steps, I guess, in a different direction or advise you against?
Not really. I mean, no, I don't think so because I grew up in that, like, my parents were very supportive. They were obviously like, okay, practically, what does this look like? How are you going to do it? Whatever. But like, they were very supportive of me starting. I detailed most of my family's cars to start for practice and everything too. And I think to some degree, because of my personality, I had in some way surrounded myself with people that were, at least, if they weren't similar minded, they were at least nice and, kind enough people to not be like, don't do that.
Right.
But I know I've heard plenty of stories of people who have, opposition even in their own family. And it's tough because that's, as an entrepreneur, especially when you have something that you want to do, like when you have people that are like, hey, don't do it because here's all the right reasons why not to. It's like, oh crap, maybe I shouldn't do it.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of a couple questions here. One thing that I was curious to know your thoughts on, because I asked a couple of other people this, and I'm just kind of curious to see what people's opinion on this is. So do you think it's important? Do you think it's a vital thing to, in order to own a business or be an entrepreneur, do you think you have to have like really good charisma or be very charismatic? Like how much of your personality, I don't want to, how much of your personality affects like the business side of things, because I have some friends who they don't want to go into any business or anything like that because they don't feel like they have like the right personality for it. And I'm just curious to know your thoughts on that.
That's a tough one. I don't think you have to be some super outgoing person. I mean, you and I both have that, that aspect of us where we're like, I'll talk to anybody. We'll, try new things, all that kind of stuff. But in the day and age that we live in, especially with technology, I mean, you can start a business and never actually legitimately face-to-face talk to a customer and sell products and do different things. So there's so many avenues that I really don't think that it's necessarily a personality thing as far as introvert, extrovert, as much as it is a desire to add value, to create, to build something, to grow. I mean, and you're going to be stretched. That's just the nature of entrepreneurship. If you're not willing to be stretched, you're going to snap and you're going to go back to what's comfortable. Because business is not comfortable.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so earlier you were talking about you had somebody who gave you a bunch of gear and stuff to get started. And it kind of made me think about like mentors. Do you think that is like a kind of like a key thing into starting a business is finding a mentor or somebody to kind of coach you through, or what do you think about that? And then also there's the 2-part question. Have you ever had somebody who was acting as a mentor? And maybe you don't have to answer it like that, but I feel like I've experienced this where I'll have like a mentor who will like try to mentor, but they mentor what has worked for them and they're very like opposed to different things that they haven't experienced. So like, for instance, if I have an idea, they might think it's like a bad idea because it's like they'll basically try and make you follow their path.
Yeah.
So so do you what's your opinion on all that?
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that because I was just listening to something the other day. I think it was Alex Hormozy actually, and he was saying that how he had talked to Grant Cardone one time, and Grant Cardone was like, yeah, no, you need to do this, like buy this building, all this stuff. And he was like, yeah, no, that's great advice for him because that's what he does. But if I do that with my skill set, I don't know the first thing about running a building and doing all this stuff and all this stuff. So he's like, it's great advice for him, but not for me because I don't have that skill set. I'm not that type of a business guy. So yeah, you're right. And I think that's part of the hard part on the mentor side is figuring out, what advice to give and when to just say, figure it out yourself, or here's the best I can give you. But yeah, as far as mentors go, I would say a lot of it, and it's funny because it wasn't like direct mentorship. And I think this is where a lot of people, when they hear this word, that they think, oh man, now I got to go like knock on someone's door or call some, really, really successful person and be like, please tell me everything. Like, I don't think it's always like that, because I feel like I had a lot of mentorship, a lot of guidance, and I didn't know a single one of them because I was learning from people's videos, podcasts, books. I mean, in every way that I could, I was trying to learn and grow and develop and figure out, okay, I got to run this business. I got to get more customers. I got to learn more skills. I got to find out what product works, all this stuff. And through all of that, I was learning from people. I was in some way being mentored by people who had done it better than me. I was watching these guys that had, $2 million detail shops and were doing crazy cars and all this stuff. And yeah, I was doing Honda Civics, but like it's still, I could take something from it. So I think there's something for mentorship in that realm, that some people think it has to be some like, apprenticey thing where they got to like, go to lunch every week. So I think that's that aspect of it. But I would say recently where I'm at, my wife and I, we run the business together. And we started to change some things. We started to grow. I mean, we've taken on a franchise on top of our detailing business, and so many things have happened. And in a lot of that, it's getting, like we talked about earlier, it's getting scarier. every day, every week, there's something that's nerve-wracking. And in that, I've started to really find people around me and realize, oh, there is a lot of people around me that are way further ahead of me. And just the other day, I reached out to a friend from church who's he's much older than me, but he's had multiple businesses, some even in my industry. And I just told him, I was like, hey, would you mind talking? Like, I just have some questions. And he called me and we talked for like 45 minutes while I was working. And he was just asking me questions and giving me advice and helping me through what he did when he was in my shoes and all that stuff. So there's definitely something to be said for that, because it's very helpful, especially on that personal level, when somebody's really pouring into you. Because from that aspect, he's not just telling me, hey, you should do this, this, and this. He's also encouraging, saying, no, you got this. Like, I can see the potential in you guys, where you are, and like how far you can go. It's really awesome. So that helps.
Yeah, I just had this thought. I think, at least in my experience, and it sounds almost similar to you, I think, where I feel like mentorship is really good, especially at like transitional phases, So like if you're transitioning from your day job into a business, great time to have a mentor,
Exactly.
Somebody to kind of walk you through. And then if you're kind of entering a new stage of your business, I think that's also a really good time to have a mentor. And in my experience, like I've had people who have helped me along the way, but I do find that, over time you can kind of, I guess you could say like, I don't know, it hurts to say, but like kind of outgrow certain mentors, where like you're at a point where like they helped you get through that transitional phase. Yeah. And now you're kind of on your own path. And that's just something I've experienced that I thought was interesting. And I think it's really cool though, as well, that we have like YouTube and all these other platforms where we can kind of have access to these digital mentors that, nobody had however many years ago before the internet,
Exactly.
So that's super cool. But there's also another side to that where I would watch these videos and I would try and take this knowledge and apply it. But it's like these guys are at completely different scales, you know, like Alex Hormozy, like I listen to a lot of him, and he classifies a small business as a $1 million a year
profit.
That's like, he's like, that's small business. I'm like, well, what, like, where
am I?
So it's like, I wish, this is actually something I wish currently is like, I wish there was something out there for like the $0 to $1 million kind of place, I feel like there's a lot less information about that process. I hear a lot of people though say 0 to 100 or 0 to $1 million is more like just a matter of like hard work, I guess. And then post that then it gets more technical, I guess. But I don't know. That's something I've been thinking about. And Yeah, sometimes I really ponder that, and you know, but yeah, so something else I thought we should talk about is you know, like mindset. So is there any specific kind of mindsets that you believe people should have to get into business? Like if somebody was, you know, approaching you talking about how they wanted to start a business, is there a kind of like a mindset that you feel like goes along with that?
There definitely has to be a drive of some form, and a desire to create. I was listening to, I think, Nick Bear's podcast.
Yeah.
And it was one he did a long time ago, but they were talking about the difference between somebody who starts a business because I want to be my own boss, and the difference, and somebody who starts a business because, you know, I have an idea and I know it's going to work, or I want to create something. I want to add value in the marketplace. I want to change something about the industry or my city or the world. You know, there's no goal that's really too big. You know, there's obviously starting points that are much smaller. But somebody with a real goal that's like, hey, I'm going to go out and I want to create something. I'm going to build something. And it's going to affect and change lives, really, is what it comes down to. So there's that, you know, that difference there. And I think that's really a pivotal point, because if you start a business because you're like, I'm just going to be my own boss, well, guess what? You realize being your own boss kind of sucks.
Sucks so bad. It's the worst.
Exactly.
You quit your 9 to 5 to work 24/7.
Exactly. Yes. And that's the thing. People are like, oh, I don't want to work. And then you realize you're literally working all the time.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awful, but I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the difference, where it's
Yeah.
like, I love it because I'm doing something, I'm building something, and we're going to go far with it.
Yeah.
But if you're in that mindset, you're like, I'm just going to be my own boss. Then you realize you got to be your own boss. You got to be your own employee. You got to be your own accountant. You got to be your own, you know, janitor. You got to be everything.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and then you have to mess up at every single one of those things and suck at it too. And then figure out how, you know.
Yeah. So you're not just learning your job. You're not just learning how to be the boss. You're learning how to do everything.
Yeah.
So it's much harder.
Yeah.
So that's where that mindset shift of, no, I'm not just going to go to be my own boss, like create my own job. I'm going because this is something that I'm, like a purpose.
Yeah.
This is something that I'm going to do. And, you know, and not just for yourself, not just for the personal gain of just, oh, cool, I'm going to go make a bunch of money. You know, I think that's where a lot of these influencers or these even big business people that are very successful, you know, everybody follows them, and it's like, sweet, how do you get a yacht? And it's like, well, guess what? There's a lot of crap you got to go through to get to that point, and you're probably not willing to make it if that's your goal.
Yeah. And that just makes me also think about how dangerous and dishonest social media is, especially when you get into like comparison, because I've seen a handful of people out there who are like flexing their car or whatever, and it's like a rental. It's not even theirs, or, you know, and it's sad because I actually see a lot of people fall for this crap where they'll like start like there's all these like get rich quick. That's the one thing that sucks about the internet. It's like it's so good, it's so awesome because you can find like some really good information out there and some really good people to follow, but there's also like a lot of people that you have to go through to find this. Like there's all these get rich quick things, and people get really like, I've had certain people like see those and then come up to me and they're like, oh, I want to do this. I'm like, no. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. No, it's like so obviously not real. But yeah, but something I've been experiencing lately is I genuinely have a dislike for social media. And we already talked about this.
Yes.
But I dislike social media, but it's so weird because in order to have a business, the best way to grow your business is through social media. It's like this weird thing where
dichotomy of differences there. Yeah.
It's interesting because it's like the thing that I dislike the most is also the most productive thing to grow the business. And if you have like a message, there's the only way to get that message across is through social media.
Yeah.
And it's Yeah.
It's a tough situation. I know. I'm very thankful for my wife because I don't have any social media.
Yeah.
She handles the business stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you said, it really is a dichotomy because it's so awful. It's like the comparison that it breeds, and the FOMO and the time wasting, and it just sucks people in. And I think that's probably a big reason why so many people don't start a business is because of the habits that social media breeds in you.
Absolutely.
You sit there and scroll for hours and hours and hours and hours.
You could,
and it's just like you could have taken that time and done something. You have this idea. You say they have this idea. Well, go do something about it. Don't waste 4.5, 7 hours, whatever it is, a day scrolling and wasting your time looking at what everybody else is doing. You know, you follow all these people, all these business people. It's like if you would spend the time actually doing business stuff, you'd be closer to where you want to get. You know, so it's but again, it's one of those things that you kind of have to have in this day and age when you want to run a business and you want to get out there.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting thing, you know, because I personally would love to just not have social media at all, but you know, we have to have it, and it's crazy because I mean it's like both extreme. It's like every extreme and in the middle, you know, like you have like it's the worst thing, but it's also like the best thing, and it's also just like kind of there in the middle as well, because like you can find some really on the positive end of social media, you can find some like really good advice or people to follow, like mentors, you know, whether it's like spiritual, business, mindset, whatever. There's that side of it, and then there's the really bad side of it where you get stuck in comparison and just like, you know, and then in the middle, you know, there's just genuine entertainment, which I don't think it's bad, you know, just you know, so it's
I know that's my wife. She's like, but I find really good recipes on there. I'm like, well, I know that I can't argue with that, but unfortunately, there's so much garbage that goes along with it, you know?
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's going to be an interesting thing that people, I included, explore moving forward. Like, I'm really curious to know what that's going to be like in the future. I almost wonder if somebody at some point might just create like a social media platform that's like kind of specifically for like the good end of social media, where it's not all comparison and bikini pics and whatnot. And and then you know, so I don't know, maybe that's an idea for somebody out there who wants to start a business.
Please do.
I will definitely be on board for that. But earlier you just said, so you're talking about how people might have like these ideas and things like that, but they just get stuck scrolling, which, you know, so I actually was curious about this because I've had a lot of lost ideas where I've had all these ideas and they just get lost because I don't act on them. And it wasn't necessarily directly correlated to social media scrolling, but they're just kind of, it's more just the me not taking action, just like inaction, just having an idea and then letting it sit there or overthinking it. And so I'm curious, was Armour Detailing, was that like one of your first business ideas, or have you had like multiple in the past that just kind of got lost in the ideable?
I think there's probably a lot in the ideable, and there's a lot in the half-hearted attempt bowl. No, I think I had, I counted at one point. It's hard for me to remember right now. I think I've had like 4 or 6 businesses before that.
So you've attempted 4 or 6
exactly, attempts.
So you have acted on it. Okay, that's cool though, because it shows kind of like that the people think that their first business is going to be the one that takes off when. Yeah,
exactly. And I've even had 1 or 2 since then, you know, that have failed too. And for me, it's not. It's not like heartbreaking, you know. It's like we tried something, and like my wife and I, like whatever it was, 7-8 months ago, you know, we had an idea and we're like, let's go for it. And so
are you talking about the bounce house?
Yes. And we went for it, you know. Yeah. And it was mostly her idea, and I'm like, all right, let's do it, you know, and let's go for it. And so we got everything going. We got the business, we, you know, got the social media, we got the website, we started doing it and everything. And it was one of those things where it just it fell flat, And part of that was because of our lack of attention to it, because we had one, and I think at that point, probably two other businesses.
Yeah.
And, you know, for us, we finally realized, okay, this is one of those things where we totally got ahead of the Lord. You know, we didn't go, all right, Lord, what do you want us to do with this? And wait to hear the answer. We were like, yeah, we could do this. It's extra income. It's easy. It's quick. All this justification, we went for it. And in the spiritual sense, yes, I guess I kind of regret the fact that I was like, man, I should have waited. It would have cost me a lot less money to just wait.
Yeah.
But in the sense of entrepreneurship, I don't regret it, because it's one of those things. Again, it was learning. It's hard to say this with 100% confidence, but I would say to some degree, there's no failure in entrepreneurship. There's only learning. You know,
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
statement.
I mean, because you and I have both failed according to the world thousands of times in the last few years, but every single one of those failed experiences was a learning experience. I mean, it happened to me recently too, and it's just like, oh wow, well, learned a lot from that. You know, hired a guy and it didn't work out, and it was a month later, and we're like, man, we should have done that, but it was like, oh, but we learned a lot.
Yeah.
I learned through the process.
Yeah, there's also that saying, you know, where you learn 10 times more from your failures than you do your successes, which I totally agree. It just sucks.
I just wish it wasn't true.
It sucks, but it's just the reality. But so in our conversation, I was kind of thinking about this. So there's guys like Alex Hormozy and guys like, what's his name? Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank.
Mark Cuban. He's the only Shark Tank I could get in my head. That was the only one.
Not Mark Cuban. But I guess you could Kevin
O'Leary.
Kevin O'Leary. So
yes.
I watched a thing of Kevin O'Leary, and I don't know if this is kind of like his business philosophy, but I heard him. He was kind of talking about, like, you know, knowing when to take a business and take it out back and just put it down, you know. And so it was making me think, because Alex Hormozy's very opposite. I think, I mean, there's obviously a lot of variables that play into things, but I hear people talk about starting like a bunch of different businesses and just kind of finding one that takes off. And then there's also the side of it to where, like, someone like Alex Hormozy, he kind of preaches stick with one. Yeah. He's like, do one thing as long as you like.
As long and as good as you can.
Yeah. Just keep it. He says it's a long game, not a short game. So the goal in starting a business is, how long can I keep this going? Yeah. Not how much money can I make, but how long can I keep this business open and going? And then, you know, once you get to a certain point in your business where you are making whatever, you can kind of like explore other ideas. But I was just thinking about that, what's a better kind of avenue, because I guess there's some people who just like business, and so that might be why they start many. But, I was listening to Jordan Peterson the other day. I promise,
surprise.
Yeah. I promise I'm not just rambling and going nowhere. I'm bringing this to a point. Because it brings up what I'm about to say. It kind of brings up this like interesting kind of scale where it's like, so Jordan Peterson was saying that people should pursue meaning, like you should pursue something meaningful. Like if you're starting a business, like do something that you genuinely feel like is going to affect that community or like make some kind of difference. Like do something that you really feel like is bettering society,
Yeah.
And then there's also, some people who do business where they just, it's not like bad or anything like that, but their business, they might be good and successful at it, but they might not be like, I don't know, like super passionate about it, or they might not feel like it's bettering the society, So, I don't know. That's just kind of a thought that I had. Do you have any insight or any opinions on that? Like,
well, back to the Alex Hormozy thing, that's one thing. I've been listening to a little bit more of him recently, and it's challenging because I currently own two businesses. And so every time I listen to him and he gives me all these reasons why he's like, just do one, do it well, do it. And I'm like, Oh man. And I'll tell you, like it's been a struggle for me recently trying to figure that balance out, because we've had Armour Detailing for 2.5 years, a little over, and then the beginning of this year we took on Restore FX, and so that for me has been a hard part, because it's like, man, I know the potential of Restore FX. There's 250 centers in North America, and they're doing really well. So I know the potential, and I know in a lot of ways it's more potential than I can get when I'm detailing. Yeah. So I'm trying to balance this thing in my head of going, oh, is detailing just a, I told Rachel this the other day. I'm like, is detailing just turning into a crutch to keep me kind of like just hobbling along? And if I was to just ditch it and go full bore with Restore FX, I could do so much more and go further. So I'm balancing that. But then at the same time, they're in the same industry. They're very, very close. They play off of each other. So I'm trying to find that balance. And we're good at what we do in detailing. We built that reputation. We built that skill set over years. So I don't want to just throw it away, So that's a tough spot to be in. But even in that, I understand what Alex Ramosi says, because and from some of the stories he gives, it makes total sense, because when your attention is divided, it's not the most effective, and I see it. I see it a lot of times. I'm like, man, if I would have spent if I would have spent all of my time this week just devoted to Restore FX, I would have probably gotten more out of it than had I been kind of bouncing, shifting back and forth. My mind's on both. It's a divided attention. So it is tough, but it is doable. And I think to some degree, there's truth to like what you said, that trying a lot of different things. And figuring out what works, what you're good at. And, I think where we're at is a pretty good place too. Like I said, it's not like we have, an ice cream shop and a detailing company. Like, Restore FX
It's funny you say that, because I know somebody who owns a barbershop and an ice cream shop.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Is that
That's funny. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so because Restore FX is permanent clear coat restoration for vehicles and, and ceramic coatings, and then detailing is obviously vehicles as well. So they really do play off each other well.
That is a tough one, because it's not like they're different things, It's not like you were just saying, like your point exactly. It's like you're not choosing between, car detailing and the ice cream shop. Like these are both of the businesses are like very similar. So I mean, that's from my perspective. I figured it was a good balance, but there is always that kind of question of like, what would happen. It's such a tough place to be.
And I go back and forth every week. She gets so frustrated with me, because I'm like, all right, we're gonna ditch this one, and she's like, no, what do you mean? And then the next week I'm like, we could totally do both, And I don't know if that's the entrepreneur in me or if that's just the indecision in me. I don't know, but
I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty indecisive.
Maybe it's an entrepreneur thing.
Maybe it is, but it's also, I know some people who said that the less indecisive you are, typically the more successful. It's like, it's almost like the less agreeable you are and the less indecisive you are. I feel like those are like two good attributes to be like successful in terms of like monetary value and owning like a business. It's like, because if you can make decisions and then not what's the word I used,
agreeable.
Yeah, if you can make decisions and be less agreeable, like you can say no when you need to, and make decisions instead of pondering them forever, like I do. I'll ponder a decision for my whole life, so that's
no, it's good. And on that point, something that I've heard recently a couple times and I've really started to think about, and I think it's huge for entrepreneurship, is the ability to say no.
Yeah, totally.
Because as entrepreneurs, we want to say yes to everything. I have shiny object syndrome all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and this is partially why I started another business that I shouldn't have. And, Rachel will tell you, I have ideas all the time. And I'm like, she's like, no, like we don't have, when time and money are you going to spend on that? I'm like, yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. So she balances me out. But yeah, learning to say no, because, and there's this is that dichotomy. There's so many of them in business, because you have to learn how to say no to the right things. I think it was Steve Jobs said, somebody asked him, what are you most proud of about Apple? And he said, I'm as proud about the things we don't do as the things that we do do with Apple. And so, and I think it was Warren Buffett who said, you know, they asked him, how do you make decisions? And he said something along the lines of, basically, I say no 99 times and I say yes to the right one. Yeah. So it's a game of no's, not yeses. And that's a hard thing to learn because we always want to say yes. But I think the dichotomy is in the beginning stage, in some form or fashion, you really do have to say yes to most everything because you're building, you're growing, you're learning.
I agree.
And, you know, you and I have talked about this before where it's like, you say yes and you go, why the heck did I do that? why did I just say yes? I don't even know how to do that. Yeah. And then you figure it out and you learn and then you go, oh crap, no, I can do that. And then the next time somebody asks, you have confidence and you have another, you know, service to offer or skill set, you know, or something like that.
You know, I think one of the most important things in people's growing, like when they're starting a business or being an entrepreneur, is the fake it till you make it thing. Yep. Mm-hmm. I think that's a huge thing. You know, like in the beginning, sometimes people would ask me to do certain things, and they'd be like, "Yeah, can you do this kind of video for me?" And I'd be like, "Oh, absolutely, yeah, easy." And I'm like, crap, now I got to learn how to do that. You know, but it's great because it actually led to me learning that. And now that becomes a part of, you know, I do that now. You only have to do it once for it to be something that you like now do. Yeah. You know, so. And
that's the scary part of entrepreneurship. That's what it goes back to. It's like if you get if you do it just because you want to be your own boss or just because you know, you're just like, I'm just going to, we'll see how it goes. Like, you're going to get to those points and people are going to go, hey, can you do this? And you're going to be like, no, I can't. And they're going to go find somebody else that's either going to already know how to do it or somebody like you and I who are going to say, yeah, we can do that. And we're going to figure it out. And to some degree, you might just fall flat on your face that first time around. But that's part of the learning process too. I mean, there's embarrassing moments. There's hard moments. There's just really terrifying moments, especially when you're doing like big jobs and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. Now I got to learn, and I also got to act like I know how to do this.
Oh my, that's the biggest thing. Is like, there's this one time I was on a shoot, and this is like in the beginning, and I was like on a shoot. I'm like, holy crap! Like, I really hope I look like I'm not clueless. Fiddling with my camera, like, how does this?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I'm just changing settings here, no big deal.
Dude, that literally actually happened to me. So this is a fun story of like pre-Ambition Film Company. This is actually, I think this might be right before I actually came up with the name or right after. It was like very beginning. Somebody called me. They wanted to do like some social media marketing, and they wanted these videos, and I was on the phone. I was trying so hard to sound like I know what I'm talking about. That was in the beginning. The hardest thing for me was quoting people, especially when they ask on the phone. Like, I wouldn't know how to handle that question for some reason. Yeah. But anyway, I ended up quoting them. I think I quoted them on the phone. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But I didn't have like any equipment.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I want you to tell the story. Okay. Yes.
Well, so there's actually two examples of this story, because like I didn't have any equipment at the time, and so what she did is she saw a video that I made for my father-in-law's landscaping company. So that's how she found us. She actually liked what she saw, but that's all I had was like the camera, you know, and I didn't have the equipment to do kind of specifically what she was wanting me to do. And so I had her pay everything up front. I was like, yeah, you know, it's this price. Yeah, we just typically just required it all right now. and she paid me, and then immediately I had no money because I took that money and I bought all the equipment I needed instantly. So I pretty much did the job for the equipment, and I'm like the equipment came the day before we were supposed to film, and so I'm literally sitting
waiting
there,
around trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm at the shoot. I'm like, I bought my first gimbal, and I'm like fiddling with this gimbal. I'm like, how the heck? And they're just like waiting for me to like start filming. Like, yeah, just one. I gotta, you know. I'm like literally figuring this out.
It's broken. I don't know what to.
I'm like, oh, this stupid thing does this all the time. It's like my first time touching it. But I mean, that was one example. There's two instances in the beginning where I had something like that. There's another time where somebody wanted to do like this really long form kind of doc style edit, and you know, I I don't know if I should tell this one.
I think that means you should.
Well, because it was like I don't know if it's like a premature story to tell. I feel like this is something I should tell like when I'm like, anyway.
When you're really, really famous or something?
Right. I don't know. So
you can always take it out.
I there is that. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just share. But they wanted this long form content, and I don't know what got into me, but like I would charge people when I first started. Like I tried to sound like I was knowing what I was doing, but I also charged like I really knew what I was doing. And so I won't say the specific number. I may tell you after, but I charged this person to do this video, like a lot of money. And to do the style shoot that they wanted, I didn't have any of the equipment that I needed, and that's kind of why I charged her what I did, because I was like, I literally charged her what it would cost me to get all the gear. So I was like, we're gonna need a light. I'm gonna need this camera, this lens. Da, da, da. So I charged her a lot, and to my surprise, they're like, okay. And I was like, what? I'm like,
why'd
you
you
just
say
say yes to that? And dude, it was really good for me because it literally got me started. That's like that one shoot. Well, actually, it was like those two shoots that I just said. Like those two shoots are like what got me going. Yeah, it was really good for me in the sense that it got me situated gear wise. Like I had everything I needed, but it also was really bad for me because my head was the size of this light that's above us, which nobody can see. But if they could see it, it's like my head was so big. But you know, I got humbled.
Business does that to you.
Yeah, it will. So, so that was just kind of a fun story. I'm sure a lot of people have others. You're channel 2, if it's really loud. You also have a thing on your headset where you can adjust it. But I would just keep it all the way up.
Oh, on here?
Yeah, on there. I'd keep it all the way up. And then I think this is also, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just turned you down.
Oh, you can't hear me. No, it's not you. It's just it was just loud. So
anyway,
that's better.
Yeah. So I feel like I've heard other stories of people talking about stuff like that, and the stories are really fun. I think they're. I think it's nice to see how far I've come and how far but yeah, that's one of my favorite stories about.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Do you have any stories like that in the beginning where you kind of had a situation like that where you ASMR today?
Yeah.
Like water going down my throat.
That everybody wants to hear.
Yeah.
There's none that like come to mind, but I just think of like my first. I'm really trying to think of a good one.
There's so many. You're still doing it.
So yesterday, actually. No, I mean, I just think of my first few times like detailing. Like, oh man, it's just not knowing what to do, having the jankiest equipment. I remember, okay, so my first detail, this isn't like as bad as yours, but no, my first detail was a guy I actually knew from church, had a C63 AMG Mercedes, and I didn't even have like, I don't even think I had a truck at that point. I mean, so he literally came to my house. Thankfully, I kind of knew him. He was actually like from Saudi Arabia, so he didn't speak a whole lot of English. He came to my house and just sat on my couch while I detailed his car in my driveway.
Wait, so he sat on your couch. He went and
my living room was his waiting room. He literally sat on my couch while I detailed his car.
Yeah, did he make himself some food too?
I don't know. Rachel was in there, and I think maybe she gave him like some bread or I don't know.
That's top level customer service,
right? Come into my house.
Yeah.
And, so he literally sat there, and I had that janky pressure washer that I told you I borrowed from my friend. Didn't have a vacuum at this point, so I literally had my home vacuum that's got like,
Yeah.
you know, like the fold down, like floor one, but it's also got like the pull out little wand.
What kind of vacuum?
Yeah. No, it's like a Bissell or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But it's got like the little, you know, normal like vacuum, like you push around the ground.
Oh, and you pull it out of
but then like the hose comes out
yeah.
and you got this little nozzle.
I got one of those.
Yeah.
That's
see?
the traditional.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with
that
that.
weird. But I was because
Yeah.
I was using that to detail his car. I had my home vacuum in my driveway with the little nozzle.
It would have been better if you actually had it plugged in.
Yeah, just like
going
pushing
across
it over
the
his
seats.
carpet. So I literally was using that.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know what else I was doing, but I did actually launch the pressure washer tip into his windshield.
No.
Yeah.
Did it break?
Scared the crap out of me. No, it didn't break.
Okay.
I think the plastic part hit it, but it was like the
Okay.
little tip that goes in the nozzle. And I go up there, it's like boonk, and it just bounces off his windshield. And I had to like look back to make sure he wasn't looking at me. And it was terrifying. I'm like, here I am charging
That's
like
so funny.
nothing for this detail, and I'm gonna have to pay for a Mercedes windshield.
That's so relatable.
Oh my gosh,
Dude,
it was
that's
scary.
so relatable. Okay, that's hilarious because I'm just thinking of like what could have been. Like, literally, you could have broken this dude's freaking windshield.
On a Mercedes. It would have cost me like all my equipment money and everything. Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's hilarious. That's awesome. I love those stories from the beginning. I had another one I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, so in the beginning, I also want to make a note of this. Just one real quick. I'm making notes of questions that I have so I don't forget because I'm really good at forgetting stuff.
Perfect.
Yeah, so back in the beginning, so obviously I do video, and in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. No, I'm just kidding. So in the beginning, for a long time, man, I have a lot of great jank if people knew I would like the operation I was running.
Yeah. You got a great front. But,
I know. Great. Yeah. It's it's really good because
me and the team will get working on that.
absolutely.
And then,
Absolutely. I was really big on that. I would always say we, my team, literally just me.
Oh yeah.
Now I do have a team.
Yeah.
I do have a team now. I'm not going to say how many people we have on our team, but we do have a team.
Or how you're related.
Anyway, in the beginning, I needed to edit, and because that's like a part of video production is having to edit. And there was this hack that I would do to Final Cut Pro. I was using the trial version of Final Cut Pro for like a substantial part of my professional career as a video editor. Like I was using it for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, so there's this thing where you can do the trial version of Final Cut Pro, and it's available for 90 days or 30 days, whatever the day is. And so what I would have to do is after the trial was over, I would have to change the date on my computer to be the date when the trial was active, start the program, and then change the date back. And so I was doing that forever, but
That's awesome.
the editing software is like $300. So I was like, I just didn't want to do that. I'm like, it's free. Like, why would I do that?
Exactly.
So that's another kind of fun story. I was also doing that on my dinosaur of a computer. I actually still have it. I don't know if I should go get it and show everybody.
I have one too. I have a MacBook from 09.
Dude, that's
It's
older
this
than mine.
big and it weighs like 12 pounds.
Mine weighs like 12 pounds too.
If I unplug it from the charger, in about 12 seconds, it just dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be fun to set my old one right here and just like start it up and then talk. By the time we're done, it may have been started. But yeah, and so I actually used my at one point I used my girlfriend's computer for my business, who's now my wife. And
Worked out.
It did. I used her computer to edit my videos for a long time, and yeah, you gotta sometimes in the beginning to make things work. It's work. You gotta be creative, do some weird stuff. You know, hack Final Cut Pro. Apple, don't sue me. I don't know why they would sue me. I got they got trillions of bucks. So anyway, but yeah, I think those stories are really fun. Like all the little things you had to do to get by. Now it's great. I've got a lot of computers and they're new.
Yeah, exactly.
and I finally bought Final Cut Pro.
Dude, good job.
Yeah,
See? Come on.
So it's good. So anyway, that's some fun conversation. But I want to backtrack a little bit to what we were talking about earlier. Well, actually, I guess we could talk about this first. So when I started, we were talking about like kind of mentorship and things like that. I bought this course called Full-Time Filmmaker, and it really helped me like get going, and start kind of like understand the basics of video and things like that. And so, two-parter question. First question, do you think online courses are good? And secondly, if so, how do you avoid choosing a bad one? Have you ever taken an online course? You have? Okay.
Yeah, I've spent my fair share of thousands on courses. And do I think they're good? Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of value in them.
Yeah.
And I think that value, so it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and I didn't say this, but we were talking about something that made me think about it, and it was, I think it was Jim Rohn who said that knowledge is not power, it's a potential for power. Everybody thinks that like, oh, the more knowledge I have, the more I can do, and the more money I can make.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's not true, because most people just keep it up in their head and they don't do anything with it, and it's useless.
You have to act.
Exactly. Yeah. You end up like you were with that, head the size of this light up here and nothing to do. So, I'll say they're effective, but only if you apply them.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, because it's very justifying feeling to go, okay, cool, I just spent $400 on this course. Now I got this.
You know what's also interesting? I feel like this is something that, I don't know if this is something that I've had experience with, or I don't know if it's just me or other people have this, but like I'll almost like do a course, learn a bunch of stuff, and then like be like satisfied. I'm like, oh, I did so much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. That's the trap.
And one thing I've also learned about courses and things like that, I feel like some people get too coursey.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's true. I mean, you could go education broke.
Absolutely.
And just spend all your money on courses thinking they're going to do something for you, but they're not. You have to do it. And I think that's why, some people go, oh, well, if you had all that information, why would you give away those secrets? I think it's because in some way they know that 90% of the people who pay for this course and give them money are never going to actually apply it. So it's not like they're creating a bunch of competitors out there, because only a handful of people are actually going to go do it. And
typically when people have those courses, they're at a place where it's not really a too big of a risk. But I have heard that before. And off track a little bit, I was watching Alex Hormozi, and he gives a lot of his stuff away for free. And I was like, what is this guy? Why is he doing that?
I was skeptical for a minute.
Yeah, because it was like really good stuff. And I'm like, I mean, it sounds good. Is it? Am I getting tricked right now? Well, he later on like kind of described that. He gave a lot of his stuff away for free to build trust. Like he would give away good advice to establish a trust with his audience, and then that is what's going to forward those people to buy whatever product he sells. He's like, give value up front. Yeah. And then they'll feel like they owe you. Not that exactly. That's but
yeah, no, and it's funny because I was literally just listening to on his podcast. He's got his book $100 Million Leads, and he literally has the audiobook on podcast on Spotify for free. And so I've been listening to it on my runs in the morning and stuff, and it's crazy because I was literally just listening to this the other day, and I got home and I told Rachel, I'm like, all right. That same thing. It's like, the social media model is, I think, what is it? One ad for every 3 or 4 posts. you know? And he was like, well, that's because they're not trying to grow. They're trying to make as much money from their audience as they can. But a platform or a person or a business or something that's trying to grow, it should be give, then ask, not give, ask, because you're going to get people that are going to go, okay, you're already asking me for money? Like, you haven't done anything for me. You haven't provided any value. You haven't shown me what you can do. And so I took that and I was like, okay, how do I apply this? And I was like, okay, well, what if we do giveaways, and I brought it back to, I was like, okay, we tithe 10% of our income. It's biblical. It's still for today. It's truth. It's God's word. And that's what we do. Yeah. And we stand on that promise. And I was like, okay, well, if I tithe my income, what would happen if I just start tithing details? Let's say roughly we do 40 details a month. Okay. Yeah. 2 a day, whatever. Well, what if I just tithed and I just gave away 4 details a month, 1 a week? We just do a free detail for somebody. Yeah. I was like, how much more is that going to come back? Because people go, nobody else is doing this. And I told Rachel, I said, why don't we just start posting it on Vero Beach Neighborhood, Facebook Marketplace, some kind of social media, but post it in a way where it's like, hey, we're going to give away this detail to anybody. All you got to do is just comment. Not like, hey, comment, tag 3 friends, follow me on this, and then do this. Because then you're already asking, hey, then everybody knows, okay, I'm going to get something, but I got to do 3 things for you in order to do it.
I actually hate those giveaways where it's like, tag someone and, give me your email, social security, and then we'll
maybe give you something.
Yeah, maybe.
And then we're going to spam you with emails for the next 2 years because you're going to forget to unsubscribe.
Yeah, exactly.
It happens all the time. And so I was like, man, if, like you said, it not necessarily trying to instill the obligation for somebody to give back to me, but in the sense where, like Alex was saying, if you're always giving, it makes people uncomfortable because they go, man, now they feel like I'm always taking. How can I give back to this guy? And the same thing. I've been consuming his free content and his book, and it's like, man, there's so much stuff that's helped. And then in there, he's like, hey, I took 2 years to make this book. Can you take 2 minutes and just like leave me a review? It really helps. Yeah. And after so much I've got, I'm like, dang, bro, yeah, I could do that for you. Like, versus somebody who's like, hey, this is, come buy my book and then please leave me a review. It's like, all right, I mean, if I get around to it, I will.
Yeah, and I really like his approach to that because it's really good at, I feel like it inspires a lot of good in the community. It builds a community, and it's just a really good kind of approach, and it works. Yeah. It's like super effective. It's like extremely effective, and I think it's definitely something that because I heard him talking about that. It's something I've been like trying to implement into my own business. Hence, me actually starting a podcast. but yeah. So I think it's he's got a lot of really good stuff to say. I really like that guy. Before we were talking about how some people can go. Course broke or whatever, and there's a thought I had. So I'll learn a lot of stuff and I'll like consume a lot of content, but it's really funny because the practice is always so different, and I can even dumb it down even smaller, and I just like it makes me understand like how important like actually getting some skin in the game is because for example, I had a car issue the other day. And I was watching a video on how to fix it, right? And I watched this video. I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. I go to... No! The one thing. Anyway, I go to fix my car, and I'm like, I find myself like, wait, how do you do this again? Yeah. I'm like looking at the video. I look at the car, and then I look at, and I'm like, why? And then, but that's also been in business as well, where it's like I'll learn things, but the practice is... It's one thing to feel like you know what you're doing, but to practice it, it's like it's way different.
Well, and you also get there and you realize, oh, maybe his is a different model, and why is that part there? Yes. But I don't see that in his video. Yeah. Or there's an aftermarket part or something, and it's so applicable to business because even when I was working with my dad, I think I saw this the most when I was working with my dad. Well, I still see it all the time, but he had he's carpenter, and so he still has a handyman business. He fixes things. He does like bathroom remodels, all that kind of stuff, like finish work carpentry. And whenever I would work with him, we'd do a remodel or we'd install a sink or whatever. It was like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. You know, you always go in with this plan. You got the right tools. Most of the time you don't. You got to go to Home Depot 3 times in the middle of it. But still, you know, you got the plan. This is how it's going to go. And I swear, every time we would do a job,
Yeah.
we'd get halfway in and it'd be like, well, crap, why is that there? Or why is that not there? Where'd that go? You know, who did this before? What the heck? And you always run into problems. And every time we would have to pivot and go, okay, this is what we were going to do. This is the challenge we ran into.
Yeah.
Well, how do we get this outcome that we're looking for and having to get around this obstacle? And it would require new tools. It would require new, you know, different product. It would require something else. And we'd have to change and, you know, manipulate the plan to get this desired outcome. And it's like, dude, I mean, every time we would just laugh because it was like, of course something went wrong, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But it's the same thing in business. It's the same thing in life, you know?
Absolutely. I totally agree. And so you just said that you guys would always go in with the plan. It makes me think about this because I feel like it's a little divided on opinions on this, but do you think you need to have like a super detailed out like business plan to kind of like go in? You don't think so? Okay. Because go ahead.
I think it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
But I would assume and could say from experience that in most cases, when you are really a true entrepreneur, you probably don't have time for that. You're like, we're gonna do it. How are we gonna do it? I don't know, but we're gonna figure it out. And you just go and you start doing things. It goes back to that same mindset. I think can often fall in the same bucket as the education broke, where it's like, well, no, but I got to get this right, and I got to plan this, and I got to plan that, and to some degree, I mean, there is times where I fall into that, where the paralysis by analysis, where I'm like, oh man, what if I don't do this? And I got to stop myself and go, no, done is better than perfect. I need to just start the process. I'll figure it out along the way. If I look unprofessional the first 3 people, who cares? Because then I'll figure it out after that. But like, you just gotta go. You gotta start. You gotta do something.
Yeah, I'm very on board with that too. I do feel like it's beneficial to have a plan, like you said, but
exactly.
I don't think it's like necessary, because there's this one person that I saw, and they were saying like they had a very different ideology. I don't know if that's the right use of that word, but they were saying that if you want to be successful, you have to have like a super detailed plan on like how you're going to get there. You have to like know what you're doing. And I think that works, but I think the reason it doesn't work sometimes is just because, you know, a lot of times you don't know what you're doing and you have to figure it out. Yeah. Like you were saying, like you have a goal and then you kind of have to figure out your way to that goal. You don't necessarily have to have like a super detailed business plan. I mean, I didn't have one. You didn't have one.
No, and it's. I mean, I think there's 2 sides to the coin, and it's good, but it also sometimes can prevent you from pivoting. You know, like I said, we went in with a plan when we were fixing things, but it was just like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna do after that. All right, but it wasn't like this is what we have to do. Because if I went in with that mindset of like, and I only brought the tools that I needed to do that job that I thought it was going to go, and I just left the rest of the tools at home, well, I would have been screwed. I would have had to then go back, and it creates another process. So it's kind of similar. Yeah. It's like, just bring it all, and with a general plan, and have as many tools as you can, as much education as you can, and then start the process and learn along the way. Because like we said, it's the failures are just a learning, and that's part of it. You're going to fail. It's like, absolutely, like when children start to walk, you know, I heard somebody say this the other day, and it was like, that's so true. But it's like, you know, when your kid starts to walk, it's not like they get up, they take a few steps and they stumble, and you go, you stupid kid. Like, why did you just fall, you moron? Like, no. Exactly.
Gosh. No. Adoption.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, let's get rid of this thing.
Exactly. It's not like that. You cheer, you clap, good job. Yes, that's part of it. Yeah. That's all. The same thing with riding a bike. You know, it's like, it's falling is part of the process, and they don't learn how to fall, they won't learn how to get back up, and they won't learn how to keep walking.
I feel like kids are a really good example sometimes. There's also another thing I saw. There's this video of this baby that was like trying. It was I don't really know how to classify it because it was like toddler, I guess. They were trying to like get on this chair, they were trying to like get on this chair, and the mom kept trying to like help the kid up because the kid
Yeah.
was obviously really struggling to get on the chair, and the dad kept shooing her hand away, you know. And it did make me think, you know, where it's like, I think it sometimes, and this is really hard. Now we're starting to talk about like parental things,
And we're not parents.
yeah, but no, I think this applies to certain aspects of life. But you know, for instance, with Emma, if I try to teach her how to do things, sometimes it's easier to just let her figure it out on her own. You know, because it doesn't do that baby any good to constantly keep putting it on the chair. Like that baby's gonna have to build those muscles and understand how to get up there, and things are gonna be hard. And that's something I've kind of learned working with my one of many team members.
No, it's true. And I was just talking to a friend the other day about this, and he has a son, and he was like, you know, talking about how and it's the same thing with my nephew. The kid falls all the time, man, like just eats it. And he just gets back up, and he'll climb trees and he'll fall down and he'll hurt himself. But then he gets up and he learns, and he's really, you know, versus somebody else who's always like, oh no, don't do that, don't, oh here, no, don't climb that tree, don't fall, don't whatever, like, and they rush to him every time they fall and pick up, are you okay?
That's how I feel with my dog. He'll just like it's actually kind of funny, this is kind of a random tangent, but like I'm kind of like the more I'll just like let Jax kind of figure his crap out, but Emma's always like, oh no, like you know, like
He's gonna hurt himself.
Yeah, it's kind of funny the difference between, I think that's kind of a general difference between men and women, where like
it definitely can be.
but anyway,
exactly. But it's through that process that he learns.
Yeah,
he strengthens, and he's more courageous when it comes to climbing the tree versus the kid who, you know, his mom never let him climb the tree. Well, then he's like, oh, like I don't think I can do that. Like the confidence is lower too, and it's the same thing in business. If you're, you know, actually going out and trying and failing and skinning your knees and learning stuff, you're going to build confidence in that area. You know, I wasn't necessarily great at sales, and then I had a like over the phone sales job for 1.5 years. I didn't really like it much, but I learned a lot from it. And then when I started my own business, I was like, okay, I've been talking to strangers on the phone trying to sell them something that most of them don't want for a long time. I could figure this out, you know. I can sell something that I know that they need and that they probably want. Like, yeah, I could talk to them. I can figure this out. So it was through that process.
Yeah.
But had somebody babied me and told me, no, you can't do that, or I hadn't gone through all the rejection of the sales process, then I wouldn't have had that skill.
Yeah. I also think that's why it's cool that you had family that was kind of entrepreneurial, because using the example of like the kid climbing the tree, you know, it's like if they see dad out there climbing this tree all the time, they're not scared to give it a try, you know, because they're like, oh, well, my dad's climbing this tree.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
that's kind of a weird example, but you know, it kind of takes the fear away
Exactly.
a little bit. I mean, obviously the kid might fall and it, you know, it'll suck. They might be scared after that, but you know, they have that person who's like, well, you know, they've done it. Like it's doable. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that applies to business. So there's also one thing I wanted to kind of talk about, because you brought this up earlier, where you're kind of in a position where you feel like maybe you should devote most of your time to one thing and kind of drop the other. Alex Ramosi talks about this all the time. I don't know if you got to this point. Maybe it wasn't Alex Ramosi. No, I'm trying to
I run into this struggle all the time. I'm like, oh, I heard this the other day by I listened to
whoever it was.
Yeah.
They compare this specifically with business owners, how they kind of compared it to the Matrix, right?
Oh yeah.
Where there's this woman in the red dress.
It was
and-
Alex Ramosi.
Yeah, and they're like, it's super beautiful, very like appealing. You want like, and there's things in business like that where there might be this new thing where it's like, oh, this is gonna be like it. This is gonna take us somewhere.
Shiny
you know,
object syndrome.
Shiny object syndrome, and it's not. And he used the example of like how it gets worse. That it's only shinier as you grow. Like the bigger you are, the more shiny the object, you know. And so it makes
and that's where it becomes a game of no's.
Yeah, and it really makes me think of like, it's so hard sometimes to like really kind of make up your mind. I guess it's like, you know, but I think as far as my own business, we have kind of like a plan, not necessarily like a super that kind of sounds bad. Not a super well thought out plan. We have a general direction that we're going.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think it's a little easier for me not to be distracted by the woman in the red dress. But
yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like recently, we've got to that point where we have really started sitting down and budgeting and okay, where's money going? Where's expenses? What are we looking at? Like all of this stuff, like really track. I mean, like to be honest, we were just kind of like freeballing it for the first 2 years. We're just like, we're gonna figure it out. We got more than more in than is going out. We're good, you know. And it's, I mean, it was ignorance. It really was. And the more we've started to look at it and like get detailed about it, it was like, oh wow, okay, we need to like cut this back and we need to, you know, devote more time to this and figure things out. So that's where, like you said, you know, you don't necessarily have to have some like detailed business plan with a mission statement, all this other stuff like so many people think that the business is, but you should have a direction. You should at least know the status of your business. Where is it at?
Absolutely.
You know, and just like have that like a pulse on your business. Where am I at? You know, am I draining money? Am I making money? You know, all that. So,
yeah. Something else I wanted to talk about is kind of schedule. So, how do you feel like your personal life kind of affects business life?
I would say, in most cases, I'm battling the other way around. How my business life affects my personal life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting perspective because in my head, I feel like it would be opposite, but
yeah, I think it's because, like we said at the beginning, you know, you work a 9 to 5 and you think it's a lot, and then you become you start owning a business, or you know, you found a company or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're working till 10 p.m. and you know, overnights and just all this stuff. You're just always thinking about it. It's always there. And so I think in that regard, it almost affects personal life more because I'm constantly thinking, how do I need to stop thinking about this for a minute so I can focus on personal life, so I can spend some time with my wife, so I can, you know, just engage in, you know, whatever it is that I'm doing and be present there. Like, you know, I was in church this morning thinking about, oh man, how am I going to do that? And I got this employee, and
like,
I got
I got to go on Jake's podcast.
like this guy. Yeah, no, but it's like you're always thinking about that stuff. It's always there. So for me, it's actually like the typical like work-life balance of trying to figure out how to, you know, slow that down a little bit. Slow down my mind, I guess.
So this actually kind of leads into, so I've definitely relate to that a lot. I didn't realize it until you started kind of talking about it. I was like, I do feel like sometimes it's hard to relax.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
not good on vacations.
Yeah. Like I'll be sitting, actually, hold on. There's something else I'm remembering. So like I'll be, you know, I'll work whatever, and I'll just want to take a break, and then I'll sit on the couch, watch TV or whatever, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, the longer I sit there, the more I'm like, oh, I still have those videos to edit. I'm like, oh, I have to reply to that email, I forgot about it, and then it's just like, I'm like, and then it just eats me alive, and it makes it to where like I feel like I'm always thinking about that, all the time, like if just all the time.
Exactly.
And I think that's more like what people mean when they say owning a business is working 24/7, is that, and this is actually something I really envy about people who work typical jobs. I have nothing against people working normal jobs. I really don't, because why? Well, first of all, at some point I'm going to need someone on my team
exactly
to work a normal job. Someone's going to have to work a normal job for me.
Yeah.
But I did. I kind of envied it for a little bit because I was like, man, people get to just like leave work at work.
Yeah.
Like they get to just be done and go home. And it's like, I get it. Like it's a really comfy lifestyle. I mean, it's a little bit of a false comfort, you know,
it's true.
which I've heard someone say, which I was like, yeah, I get that because, but anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Yeah. So personal life and business, you know, I feel like something that I thought about, and I feel like Jordan talked about this a little bit, not directly, but he has this book called 12 Rules for Life. And it's kind of about like getting your life in order. And I feel like he kind of preaches this idea that you, in order to be successful in your business, you have to have like your personal life kind of sorted out, you know, because if your personal life is bleeding, that's going to start bleeding into the business, you know, which I mean, it makes sense to me. So I was curious to know, do you have, is there something over there? I saw you looking, is that camera still on? Okay. I'm just making sure.
Yeah. I was just looking at it. I was like, is this like weird? Okay. We're good.
Do you feel that, first of all, do you have like a kind of like a set schedule? I think we've talked about this before, but do you have like a kind of like a schedule for yourself, like a daily schedule? You know, do you have a Sabbath, and do you think that that's important for being able to operate a business and maintain like personal life?
I'm not very good at schedule.
Neither.
Not
I'm
at
terrible.
all. Yeah. My wife is much better at the whole, like, okay, she puts things in order and puts them on her calendar. But yeah, I'm not very good at the schedule, but it's something that I need, you know,
Yeah.
like, I think it's Jocko Willink's book. It's either, Extreme Ownership or Dichotomy of Leadership. I think it's Extreme Ownership, where he talks
I need to
about
read that one, Dichotomy of Leadership.
it's really good. So he talks about discipline equals freedom. And, you know, most people think like, oh, well, a disciplined life is a boring life. And he's like, no, because once you have a disciplined structure in your life, well, now when things come up, you can pivot easier. You can, you know, you have a structure, so now you don't have to think about it. Somebody who has no structure in their life, everything that comes at them is a surprise because they don't have structure. They don't know, okay, this is how I'm going to handle this, and this is what I'm going to do after that, and whatever. Like, there's structure so that when things happen, you can pivot easily. You know which way you're going. You still have the structure of, you know, the day or this task or whatever it is, versus somebody who's just kind of like, we'll see what happens, and then like, you know, everything that comes just hits you in the face, and you have no way to determine or, you know, to defend yourself, kind of thing.
So do you wake up every morning and go on a run? Do you have kind of like a schedule like that where every morning you're like, I got to get my run in? I know you're a breakfast guy, recently figured that out.
Yeah. Big breakfast guy.
So you kind of, do you have kind of
so yeah, I mean, I have a like somewhat like routine in the mornings.
Yeah.
So Rachel and I both try to have some time of prayer and reading the word in the morning. I've been slacking a little bit of that recently with different things going on and stuff. But so we try to do that for 30 minutes to an hour. Typically, like, first I wake up and I eat something a little bit, and then I make coffee. You're going to laugh at me because you said breakfast guy. I eat a little bit, and then I drink coffee.
Okay.
And then I eat a big breakfast later. It's just coffee on an empty stomach doesn't go well.
You really do love breakfast.
I do.
You get 2 of them.
Yeah, pretty much. So
that's great.
Right now, Rachel and I are training for a half marathon, so
That's really cool. I like that.
So I have a run schedule. So typically every other day, roughly.
I feel like this is just my personal opinion. It's kind of like a random thought. I feel like if anybody has, because I feel like earlier we were talking about discipline. I feel like discipline is such a staple for anybody who owns a business. Yeah. I think that if anybody has the discipline to work out and be healthy, they could start a successful business, in my opinion, because that's like super hard, you know? So like if you could get that.
It is because, and I've seen so many correlations of like starting to work out and the correlation between that and business and starting something in life, because I've worked out a bunch of different times at different points in my life. Yeah. You know, I was like 145 pounds. I got up to 160 in like 3 months, and then like just stopped basically. I mean, I don't know. Life happened. It was like, oh, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, whatever. And then like dropped all the way back. And so I've done that like 3 or 4 times. I know what it's like. And I've done it in business where like I start a business and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And then, you know, sure enough, it fails. But there's so many correlations that I've found just in this, like, I guess you could call it training block or half marathon prep, because I'm not like a runner. Yeah. I mean, I might be built like one, but I don't really like it that much. I played running sports in high school and whatever else, but my wife was the runner. And it was actually a lot of Nick Bear's stuff on podcasts and YouTube and whatever, and just hearing him talk about it. And I was like, you know what? Like, this is something that I need to do, partially because I don't want to do it. Like, to be honest, that's a big part of why I started running, because I was like, what is the thing I don't want to do the most? I don't want to run. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to start running. Yeah. And in that process, I'll tell you, like, literally, like, just this week has been the week where I hit that wall where, you know, I was like, dude, I'm hyped. Let's do it. I'm gonna start running. You know, we're doing 3 miles. We're doing 8 miles Saturday. We're doing whatever. And I'm like running. It's been like handful of weeks or whatever. And I finally just hit that wall where like my alarm goes off at 5:30 in the morning. And I'm like, I do not want to run. The last thing in the world I want to do is get up and run 8 miles right now. Yeah. But in doing it, I'm at that point now where I finally understand what's happening. The excitement of starting, just like in business, just like in working out, just like in a new meal plan and keto, whatever the new thing is that everybody starts, they start and it's like you get this really big momentum. You're super stoked and it lasts a few weeks, few months, whatever the case is. And then it starts to plateau and then eventually it just dives. And it's in that plateau season where if you can just keep it plateaued for a little while, if I can just keep it going and keep it flat, eventually it will slowly start to increase. But it's a long game. Yeah. Just like business, just like, I mean, kind of like what Alex Ramosi says. Yeah. There is a lot of truth that it's a long game. And I know with where I'm at right now, even with running, it's like, this is a long game. I have to play this long game, because if I take those little steps and I give into those little things now where I'm like, well, maybe not today, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow will turn into the next day. And, you know, I've heard it said that tomorrow is a day on a fool's calendar. It just doesn't, it's not going to happen. Yeah. It's so something I feel like I have been able to know. So it's really interesting how, like, I feel like just as humans, like, we're so, it's weird because we're like, programmed to feel good in overcoming, you know? And like whenever you do difficult things, like you always feel so much better afterwards, and it's like you feel progress. And that I feel like this is really cool. So somebody, I think it was Jordan Peterson who said this, but they're like, he's like, what do you fear more? Do you fear I'm totally butchering this. But it was like, what scares you more? What, failing or staying where you are? Because if you stay where you are, that's equally as bad, if not worse, than just trying something, you know? Yeah. That kind of sounds like it came out of left field, just random, because we were talking about running. But anyway, it's like, I was going to say, I always feel so much worse. You know, like you have that alarm clock go off in the morning. You're like, oh, I don't want to do this. I always feel so much worse after I sleep in than if I were to just do it. Because after you do it, you're like, I did something, you know, that was difficult. And it's like rewarding. Yeah. And it's good. I like that. I like to practice doing things that are difficult or uncomfortable. I think it's really good for people to do that. I feel like you have so much more control over your mind when you practice that, you know. You're not just kind of getting hit by life. You're kind of like punching back, I guess you could say. Yeah. And I thought about it the other day and I was like, you know, I think I think everybody should have some form of
Yeah.
a fitness goal, even if it's I want to be able to walk a mile straight.
Yeah.
You know, like no matter what it is, it doesn't have to be a half marathon, a marathon, an ultra marathon, or a Ironman or something. Like it doesn't have to be that, but just some kind of fitness goal of some kind, because it not only is it going to benefit you long term and you're going to stay healthier,
Yeah.
but it also is just a form of discipline, and almost
Yeah.
nobody really wants to do it. Even the guys that love working out, like, and I honestly, like, I enjoy it when I do a little bit more like strength training stuff. Like I enjoy it. It's nice. But that wears over time. Even the people that really love doing it, they get tired, they get bored, they get, whatever. They don't want to do it some days, but it's doing it those days that really changes the trajectory of life,
Yeah.
because it affects so many other things.
Yeah. Goggins was actually talking, Goggins, right?
Mhm.
Too. So Goggins was talking about this. He was saying that people think he's like this superhuman and everything like that. And he was like, dude, I don't like doing this. He's like, I don't like doing this either, but that's why I do it.
Exactly.
Like, he's like, I have the same struggles, I just make myself do it,
Yeah.
And I think that's really good for people, and that's definitely something that I aspire to be more of, like, because I've always, as far as the fitness goals go,
I'll take you out running with me.
actually I need to, but yeah, this is kind of a I don't know if I should talk about that. I was gonna say because it's always good to have like accountability, which I feel like is really great, especially when you have a goal, like you have somebody that keeps you accountable. I think it's even better when you can keep yourself accountable, but I do always think to have somebody to keep you accountable for your goals is good. And that kind of led me to think about like starting a business where, some people feel like they have to be like super charismatic to start. I actually learned recently that, like, I guess Ben Shapiro started his business with a partner, like you don't have to be charismatic. Like maybe sometimes like you can partner yourself with certain people to do things, because a lot of the faces that we see, there's a lot of other people that are partnered up with these guys. And that was just kind of a random thought that I was thinking about, because if anybody's like discouraged to not start a business, it's like, okay, well, maybe you're not the best face of the business, but maybe you can be like the brains.
Yeah, well, and it's and like there's caution to partnerships. Obviously,
Absolutely.
there needs to be like study it first and be detailed about it, and especially
totally.
on the front end. But
Yeah.
no, it's really true, because like there's a detail company called Chicago Auto Pros, and they're a massive detail company. They do sell products and all this other stuff, but it's the same way. Jason, one of the founders of it, he's got 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and does all this stuff, and he does all the videos and face and the big beard and whatever. But he's partnered with a guy, Greg, who's like basically the brains of the money side. He does everything, accounting, the spreadsheets, and so like the two of them work great together because they carry two different skill sets. So it can definitely be beneficial.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, and it just kind of hit me randomly. I have a lot of random thoughts that just kind of hit me.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh, and so something that I wanted to talk about, I don't know how we kind of got on health, but I just overall, I just feel like health is like really important, and people should take it way more seriously than they do.
Especially in today's world.
Especially me, because I'm getting up there.
Now I'm going to make you go running with me.
I should. I need to. I will. But because I feel like a lot in fitness goals, like that's where people experience the most ups and downs, and that led me to recall a conversation I had with my stepdad Ricky. Is he was, whenever I was doing the business thing, he was like he was trying to encourage me. He was saying like, you'll start a business and it'll be good, but it's not always gonna be good. Like you're gonna have ups and downs. Don't get too caught up in always trying to double your revenue or whatever. Sometimes you're gonna have to backtrack a little bit to move forward.
Yeah.
And and I think it's I think that's something that I've always thought about and kind of kept with me a little bit. I'm always thinking about that. Because what's that statistic? Like most businesses fail within the first how many
2 to
years?
5 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
And then the number just incrementally gets, it gets larger
Yeah.
as time goes on. Most businesses will never make it to 10 years and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious. I don't know. We'll see how long we last.
I got some things on entrepreneurship that I had wrote down that I'm kind of trying to think of, like, okay, how do we get to this?
I don't want to. Before we get into that,
Yeah.
I do want to talk about that. I wrote this twice on here, and I
Still skipped it.
yeah. So first, before we get into that, even I'm curious. So you started your business how many years ago?
2.5.
2.5. Okay. I wonder when I started. I think I'm around the same. Didn't we start around the same time? Did we?
Probably, yeah.
That's super cool. I think that's really fun that we both started around the same time, and I think that's awesome. I think it's really fun to experience growth with other people.
Yeah.
I feel like it's beneficial to surround yourself with people who can relate and things like that, or else you can feel kind of lonely sometimes, I guess. But those are just random words. So I wanted to know your thoughts on hustle culture, because Alex Hormozy actually said this, and it really caught me off guard. I was like, wow, that's an interesting thing, hearing it from him. And so he said that you can wake up at 12, eat pizza, be super unhealthy, and still be successful, because he was kind of like combating hustle culture a little bit, how people are like, oh, this is how you do it. You
Gotta grind.
You have to wake up at 5 a.m., run the circumference of the world, and, by the next hour, be writing a book and all this stuff. And I think those are good things to have, but I feel like it can sometimes set an unrealistic expectation for some people. And but anyway, so he said that, he said he disagrees with all those things. He doesn't think you should live life like that.
Yeah.
But his kind of approach to it is you 2 + 2 = 4. If you do what is necessary to start a business and have it become successful, that's what you'll get out. If you spend the first 6 hours of your day screwing off doing whatever, but you spend the rest of your day like devoted to your craft or your business, like then you can still be successful. And I don't know, I just thought that was a really interesting approach and take on it, coming from him, being someone who wakes up at 5 a.m. and works out and is like super jacked. But yeah, I thought that was a cool thing. So I guess with that being said, so what are your thoughts on like the whole hustle culture? Do you know what that is? Okay, so
I think it is in some ways probably just about as detrimental as social media.
Yeah, like kind of like conceited, I guess.
Yeah, well,
and
it drives people to think that they have to try to beat everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, you all suck. I'm going to do this. I don't care about anybody. I don't care about anything. I don't care about your time. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to grind. And it in some ways negates a lot of the working together. Like you talked about, surrounding yourself with other people and the community of entrepreneurship. I think it's also driving a lot of people into the ground. People listen to too many Grant Cardone videos, and then they don't sleep for 5 days, and they're going to try to buy a building the night. And I think it's not healthy to some degree. Like, yes, there is an aspect of it that's true. Like, you're going to have to hustle. You're going to have to work when you don't really feel like it sometimes, like we were just talking about. You don't want to get up at 5 a.m. and run, but you got to. There's certain things that you're going to have to do, and it's going to take effort. It's going to be harder than it would be to just wake up at, go to your job at 9 o'clock, clock out at 5 o'clock, go home, watch TV, eat dinner, whatever. It's going to be harder. But I don't know.
I feel like it's created a lot of arrogance.
Yeah, that too.
Like, I don't want to be a hater, but I'll experience some people that are like really young, and I'm not against young entrepreneurial aspirations, but I'll Like, for example, when I was in high school, there'd be people who were like, yeah, I'm like gonna be all this in a bag of chips, and it's just like it's like they almost like,
It's like, I'm going to be better than you, and I'm going to tell you that how much I'm better I'm going to be than you.
It was
It's just arrogance.
Yeah, it was just so weird because it's like it's like they get so pumped up, you know, that they forget that they haven't even done anything.
Well, and yeah, exactly. And
You know?
I'll say this, you know, you and I had talked about like ambition at one point. Yeah, shout out. So, and you know, it's the Ambition Alcove podcast, and I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was the Green Room podcast, which is Iris Global, and he was interviewing a pastor, and they talked about that whole idea of ambition. You know, what does it mean? Can you, you know, as a Christian, are you supposed to be ambitious? You know, because so many people think it's a bad word.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really cool answer. So he said, yeah, I believe that as a Christian, like, ambition is good. Now, obviously, there's, you know, two sides to that. Selfish ambition is sin. But, you know, his definition of ambition I thought was super cool. And I wrote it down. He said, biblical ambition is wanting to pursue greatness for the purpose of serving others, grounded in biblical principles. So it's like, if that is your ambition, to pursue greatness, like a level of excellence.
Yeah.
But for the purpose of serving others. And I think that's where the whole hustle culture can get out of whack, where it's, I'm going to hustle for me and mine.
Yeah.
It's all about me.
Yeah.
That's selfish ambition. It's not serving others. And it's not grounded in biblical principles, which oftentimes will say, okay, yeah, I should, you know, do this, this, and this, and I'm going to basically stomp you into the ground so I can get above you. Well, like, that's not the Lord. Like, no, sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think this goes back to, this will lead maybe into a little bit of a conversation that you and I were having at one point too, was being a Christian in business.
Yeah.
It's harder.
I will say, being a Christian, it's hard because I feel that it's almost looked down upon to have like really big aspirations and goals, you know? I don't know if it's like that across the board, but I just feel like, I don't know, it's just like this little thing in me where I just like, through context of like, through what people have said, like nobody's really said it directly, but it's just like, I just kind of feel that way. And it's always made me a little hesitant to like, share certain goals and things with people, because I feel like, first of all, they might laugh because they think it's a little too like crazy and things like that. But secondly, it's almost like, I don't know. I feel that sometimes as Christians, people kind of, I'm trying to find
the false humility of you have to think smaller and be, you know, don't dream that big. Like, well, that's sinful. It's like, well, no, it's the love of money is the root of all evil. It's not money.
Yeah.
So yes, if I make a boatload of money, but I'm not only tithing, but I'm also supporting people. I'm giving abundantly and generously, and I'm using the funds that I make from my business to further the kingdom of God. Like, that's why in the world would the Lord want me to make less money? And it's like, no, don't do that, because that's bad. Like, it doesn't even make sense. It's like, no, if my profit motive turns into just a profit motive for me and not for the sake of furthering the values that I believe in, well, then that there's definitely something to be said for the fact that that's could be argued as wrong. But it's like the world has so much money, and they're using it to further the kingdom of evil. You know, the kingdom of darkness is prevailing in so many realms because there's money and there's power behind it. But if we can take, you know, if there's more Christians that stand up with a power that's superior and have the finances to do things in those areas, you know, people complain about, or will say something about, you know, well, it's so a shame that this area is so impoverished. It's like, well, what would happen if entrepreneurs who are making a lot of money, who were Christians, were able to take that and then go in and feed half the city, or, you know, do something with the money? It takes money to do things. And if we don't have money, there's a lot of things we just can't do.
Yeah.
You know, if the Lord calls you to go tomorrow to Africa and you go, well, yeah, but I don't have any money. Well, it's like, okay, well, then you got to find a way to make the money. And don't get me wrong, like the Lord can provide and will provide in certain ways. Like he does that. But how much more if, you know, you're a completely free entrepreneur and, you know, you are following the will of God and he says, go, and you, okay, no problem.
I feel like that's the biggest thing that I hear people say when it comes to money is they kind of frame the conversation like you're not relying on God anymore. And
which doesn't make any sense because, again, like we've talked about a lot of this time, when it comes to business, it takes a lot less reliance and and I'll be very cautious in saying this. I would say it often takes some less reliance to just go to work than it does to go, okay, I'm going to forsake all of that and I'm going to go after this dream, whether it's, you know, like something that the Lord's given you or it's an idea you have, or you're just like, hey, I'm going to start this business. There's going to be so many times where you realize, and even like this week, times where I've realized, man, like I was not relying on the Lord for this provision, and that's why it didn't work out. But as soon as I begin to rely on him and trust him in all of the decisions I have to make on a weekly basis and things that don't go my way and jobs that fall through and all of the pivots that I have to do on a weekly, monthly basis, I have to rely on the Lord all the time.
yeah.
So it's not me relying on myself, because when I did rely on myself, I screwed myself.
And you almost experience it, I feel like, at a larger scale, owning a business in people like that are like extremely successful that, like, you know, just for sake of example, like Elon Musk, like if he was a Christian, you know, like if you were somebody like a Christian who owned a business that was that big, you know, it's like you have a lot more to lose. You know, like you have a lot more, but you also have the most to lose. And I feel like you kind of experience it, like trust in God at a larger level when you have more to lose. But it's also, but I mean, the way I said that kind of makes it sound like money's everything. It's not. But I mean, you also rely on God in different ways too. Once you acquire a certain amount of wealth, I was just thinking about this, you know, I feel like it almost forces you to think about your life in like a higher definition, you know, because people will, because the problems you experience are different, you know, because you're experiencing a lot more personal problems and kind of like existential problems, you know. And I think I think once you achieve something like that, you're almost forced to, like, your relationship with God has to be like super strong, you know, because if it's not, you're going to be drawn to love money. Yeah.
You can't serve two masters. And I think that's where it gets hard, because the more money you have, the bigger that master can become, or at least it can seem. It's the woman in the red dress. It's the shiny object syndrome. That shiny object might not be another business, but it might be the, you know, $600,000 in your bank account or something,
or a literal person in a red dress.
Well, exactly. That's a very real possibility.
And
it's there, and that pull becomes harder if you're not in the secret place. Like if it's if you're not, and I'm experiencing that in certain ways, even where my business is at, and it's not that big, it's not huge, it's not whatever. I'm not making crazy money, but it's even in that place, I have the battle between the attention. My attention, like we talked about earlier, it's the work that affects my personal life so much, and it's that distraction of always thinking about it that can oftentimes pull away from my relationship with the Lord, because I'm even, you know, out praying or in my room praying or whatever, and I'm praying and I'm praying and I'm praying, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking like, oh man, you're right, I got to email that person back. I totally forgot about that quote. And then how am I going to get this job for next week? And I got to get this guy here. And all this stuff starts happening, and it's just like a snowball that begins to grow.
Yeah.
And so that it might not be something big, another new opportunity, but it might be just a distraction of what's already there.
Yeah. And something I was thinking about the other day, and I think I may have spoke to you about this, is I was almost like, where are all of the Christian business owners? Like, where are they? I feel like they're like hiding in the shadows. Like recently I've seen a couple emerge. But I don't know. I feel like for so long, business and faith were like really, because we have people like, who's the dude who owns he has like a private jet or something like that, and he bought like a famous guy's private jet, and it was like really controversial, and I feel like maybe almost like it left like there's certain pastors who kind of ruined it for other people, where it kind of put this bad taste in everybody's mouth, where like Christians and business and success don't really go together, and so I feel like they're like a lot of the Christian business owners were like kind of like, yeah, I don't want to be in the public eye. Like, I don't want people to know that, I'm a Christian or maybe that I have a business, if, so I don't know, but I feel like I've been seeing some more pop up recently.
I feel like it's harder in some ways. And like I said at the beginning, it is harder, I believe, because to that point, you are then looked at by your clientele, by competitors, by just the world, the public in general, as, okay, you're a Christian business. Great, now prove it. There's that aspect to it. And in a similar vein, like I had written down, was like, it's harder because you're actually faced with moral black and white decisions that a lot of people, a lot of worldly, unsaved people don't have that issue. They don't have the I don't know how to say it really, but like the moral right and wrong compass determined by the word of God. They're going, oh, whatever. I cheated him for, an extra $100. Who cares?
Yeah.
Versus when you're following the Lord and you're running business and you're running it for him, it's like, I can't do that. No, I can't. And there's things that you have to say no to. Yeah. There might be opportunities that you say, no, sorry, I can't, I mean, even as simply as, I got some email the other day, somebody tried to invite my business to be at some like Halloween festival thing for a like marketing thing. And I was like, no, I'm not going to, because the very antithesis, the very basis of your event revolves around something that is directly contradictory to the word of God. So therefore I'm not going to be there as a business basically saying, I agree with this and, support me. Oh, I'm a Christian too. It's like, well, that doesn't work, so I have to say no to things like that.
Yeah. I think that's really important. It sucks. Like I see sometimes like these businesses that I'll really like them, I'll be like, oh, this seems like a good set of people, and I'll follow them, and then I'll see something like where they'll kind of like slowly start letting go of their their morals a little bit. Like they'll kind of like make these little compromises. Yeah. Oh, so it's sad.
Yeah, no, it's true.
What else do we have here on this? I'm curious to see what you had prepared for today.
This was something that I had written down, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. And it wasn't necessarily in for this, but it was also, part of it was for thinking about my own podcast, which, might come out sometime. We're not going to put a date to that. But in regards to entrepreneurship, and I think this goes back to what we had talked about at the beginning, like who should start, and should you be, if you're questioning, am I the right person, or am I an entrepreneur, or whatever, don't take this as like, this is the only definition. If you don't fit it, like, oh, well, go get a job. But this is just what I observed from my life and what I've seen from other people. But I had just written down, like, an entrepreneur will always be an entrepreneur, even without a business. Their mind is always thinking about how to solve problems, tweak things to make them better, or overthrow the whole system and start from scratch. An entrepreneur gets frustrated with average. Like there is, you don't have, just because you have an LLC does not mean you're an entrepreneur. You might be a business owner, but that does not make you an entrepreneur. Yeah. The entrepreneur mindset, the ability and desire to create, whether from scratch or to change a new system, to build something new. Like it's entrepreneurs who have built America to what it is. Yeah. And it's them who will keep building. It's not the politicians. And like small business needs to make a bigger comeback.
Yeah, absolutely.
To keep things going.
Yeah, and something that I thought was really cool that I heard the other day is it's also, business and entrepreneurship. It's also a really good way to kind of bring people together, and kind of set their differences aside. Like for example, I mean, this isn't really directly correlated with like what you were talking about and how like the entrepreneur is like really creative and like innovative, but it's something I was thinking about where there's this guy. It was actually a really old video. He held up a pencil, and he's like, "This pencil, like the wood, was cut down from a tree in some other country. The lead that goes in this was made in a different country. It was put together in our country or whatever." And he was just kind of talking about how like all these other countries, like they would like, we would be angry at each other and everything like that, but we all come together to make this product. We have our differences, but we all agree that we're going to work together and do this product. And I think it's really cool to kind of see that where people can kind of put aside their differences and work towards like a specific goal. And
I think that kind of goes back to what we talked about with the hustle culture and all that, where I'm going to get, mine and I'm going to do whatever. Well, it's like, it's ignorance, because there's so much more power in community and in people working together you're right, because imagine one business was like, well, screw all you, I'm going to make this pencil myself. Oh, now you have to, all these other problems you have to figure out where you're going to get this made and that made.
Yeah.
So when they're working together, like it's more powerful. And I've been thinking about this with my own business recently. It's like, okay, how do I market better? How do I get more clients? Okay, well, I can sit here and think about all the things I can do and try to do up everything I can do. Or I can go, all right, well, I know this body shop over here, and he has 15 cars that go through his shop every single week, but he's not cleaning them. Well, maybe I should go talk with him, build a relationship with him, and then he'll leave my cards in there. Then now that's 15 more people that didn't know about me before. And then I can do his car for free when I get 5 cars. Like things like this, where working together with other business owners and entrepreneurs to better whether it's the industry as a whole or the people's lives who are partaking in my service or product or whatever you're selling, like working together with other business. That's why marketing groups and these business fairs and things like that, they work really well. I
would love to go to some of those. They sound like an absolute blast, but I don't know. I haven't made it over. I don't know. I think a part of it is I just don't want to spend a bunch of money to fly somewhere and then be away from the business for a period of time. But I really would like, if they have any in Florida, I'm like, I'll go. Do it.
Well, and it's so funny you mentioned this, because I literally wrote this down. And I talked to somebody recently about, we're going to SEMA, which is a huge automotive aftermarket industry show in Vegas. And we went last year too. And I was talking to a guy, and he was kind of like, well, you can't make, money if you're not here, like you can't make money there. So why go? And I was like, no, I mean, yeah, you're right. And it got me thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe I should stay home. Maybe I should make some money. But I realized, I'm like, no, because the experience, the networking, the things I'm going to learn, the, things I might see or experience while I'm there within the industry, all this stuff, like all of that. Yes, I didn't make the $1,000 or whatever it was that I was going to make when I was gone. Yeah. But the culmination of those experiences and things learned are probably going to make me 10 times that over the next 6 months, year, 2 years, because I invested in myself and my business versus just working in the business.
Yeah. I should take some notes on that. Actually, one of my friends is going to, where is it? I think it's Utah for a mastermind kind of thing. And I was really tempted to go to this one because we both saw it on the same Facebook group. And I was like, should I go? Didn't go.
Next time.
Yeah, but it was a little too niche for me though, because it was like very specific, and we do a lot of different kinds of things. But this is kind of a random one, but I'm just curious to know your answer. Has being an entrepreneur kind of like this whole journey, has that changed the way you kind of see the world at all, or see money? Do you see money differently, or do you see the world in a different light?
Yeah, I think I see it in a kind of like I've mentioned a few times, like creating value, adding value. when you're just working a job, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to show up and I'm going to work and I'm going to get paid.
Yeah.
And to some degree, depending on your job, the level of value you provide doesn't really determine. I guess technically it determines your position, but in a lot of ways you can skimp and just kind of work it half-heartedly and whatever, and get paid the same amount. And until you become an entrepreneur and you have your own business and you really start working on that and realizing like, oh, if I don't provide value, I'm not going to get any money.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it was Alex Ramosi or somebody the other day that I was listening to said like the business that provides the most value wins.
That sounds like
yeah, exactly. So, but it's totally true. And that's what I started realizing recently. It's like, okay, I can, raise my prices, lower my prices. I can try to change so many variables, but if I just add value and add more of it than anybody else in my industry or in my region or whatever, like I will win in some sense of, okay, I'm going to get more clients. I'm going to be able to grow more. I'm going to be able to expand, whatever the case is. So it has definitely changed my mindset to more of a value-based mindset. And also, just, I think differently about stuff.
Yeah.
You walk into a restaurant and you're like, wow, how do they do this? And I wonder how much it costs them to make that. And what about, or you're just in any business and you're just like, how did they get how did they ship this? That must have cost them a lot. And then how did they do this? And you're just always thinking in that realm.
Every time I ordered a drink, I'm like, wow, like they probably paid 12 cents for this.
Exactly.
And I just paid $3.
That's the thing I think about all the time. I buy food. I'm like,
yeah,
dang, this was so cheap for them. But hey.
Yeah, no, I that's cool. I think like that too. And I think that's definitely something I developed post starting a business. Do you feel like owning a business has kind of changed the way I view the world a little bit, where like I don't know, like for one thing, I feel pretty like free owning a business, but I also feel very like tied down at the same time. It's kind of an interesting concept, but I don't know, it is different because I feel like the majority of people just don't have the same thought process, or like owning a business, I feel like I learned, how to say this, it feels that most people who own businesses are forced to think in higher resolution. And some people that don't own businesses, not taking shots at anybody who doesn't own a business, but like I just feel like in my experience, their thought process is just a little more, it's just like different. Like they don't think the same way. They don't think about a lot of things. I don't want to say it's like shallow, but it's like sometimes I feel like business owners, I just feel like there's a lot more, the conversation's just different.
Well, and it's like when you and I get together, and that's kind of how this all started, part of how this started, and me being here. But it was like every time we got together, it was like we'd have these hour-and-a-half conversations about business and about theory on different things and life and why is this, social things, and why is this like that and why isn't that like that, and all this stuff. And we'd get into these deep conversations because it's constantly how we are, and we're in a growth mindset. Because if you're an entrepreneur and you're not growing, you're dying. That's how it goes. The stagnation only lasts so long before somebody else comes up and surpasses you. And it's not necessarily like it's a race or it's some like thing where you're against everybody else, but if you're not growing, then you're not gonna get very far.
And it's not to say that people who like work a 9-to-5 can't do that, but I just feel like it's
no, not at all.
I feel like it's more
common.
Yeah, it's more accepted to just be a certain way when you like have a typical job, and I feel like it's more promoted when you own a business to kind of think differently. I don't know, because like I feel like most of the time I can tell if I'm talking to somebody, if like I don't have to ask if they own a business. I'm like, I know you own a business, and so it's definitely, from my perspective, definitely changed how I have conversations with people, because I always try and have conversations with people that they can enjoy the conversation. I don't want to be that guy who sits there and tells you about crap you don't care about the whole time. I've done that. You know, and I can feel it. I can feel it. I'm like, wow, I trapped this person. I also hate being trapped.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, it's changed in my perspective has changed in that manner.
I think that one might make some people mad.
Yeah, I think so, possibly, but you know, it's whatever. I'm not for everybody. Yeah. So, what do you think? I'm curious about this. So, like, if somebody came up to you and they had the desire to start a business, and they're coming to you and just asked, like, what should I do? Like, what would you say to them? Would you encourage them? Because I know that this was kind of a fun one. Elon Musk, he went up to a group of entrepreneurs that were touring Tesla, and he said, don't do it. He said, it sucks. It's the worst thing you'll ever do. Do not do it. And would you say that? What would you say?
No, I wouldn't say that, but I think it might be really good.
Yeah.
Not reverse psychology, but a good test, because you know, if somebody says something like that to you, especially somebody that's successful that you look up to, and you go, no, I'm doing it anyways. Like, I'm sure he probably weeded out a good majority of those people for the ones that were like, I don't care, dude, I'm doing it. And those are the people who are really going to succeed. The people that were like, oh gosh, okay, yeah, no, Murray, you're probably right, and quit that day, like, they weren't going to make it anyways. Yeah. So no, I mean, I wouldn't say something like that, especially because I know what it's done for me and my, you know, I don't want to say for me, but like for my, like we talked about, perspective, my life, my path. And to some degree, like, I know like this is part of the trajectory that the Lord has me on. So I know that, you know, I know that's where I'm where I'm supposed to be right now. I know there's plans in the future, and I don't know what those look like and how it's all going to play out, but I know where I'm supposed to be now. And everything I've learned over this process of just the last, you know, professionally, I guess you could say the last 2.5 years, but really for the last 5-10 years of the entrepreneur mindset and the trying and failing and ideas and learning and growing and all of this stuff, like, dude, it's awesome. And so there's obviously caution in just telling people like, yeah, go out and start a business, because like, it really isn't for some people. And, you know, I don't want to tell somebody like, just do it no matter what, because you don't want to go like spend all the money you have to start something that you really suck at, and you don't realize it until you get there, and then you're broke. And, you know, so like, be cautious about it. Maybe have a plan about it. Talk to somebody, you know, I'm sure that you know somebody who has somebody who's fairly close to you who has a business, and talk with them and just say, hey, look, this is an idea I have. What do you think about it? What do you think about me trying it this way? Or, you know, especially if you're like, I'm going to go all in on this, like, please talk to somebody first. But talking with somebody who's been down that road before, because they're going to be able to tell you things that you wouldn't have seen. Yeah. You know, I probably should have talked to more people when I started, and I would have learned a little bit more ahead of time, and like, probably would have made so many mistakes. You know, like, learning from experience is not the best. This is not the best teacher. But I was
like, I think that's the opposite of how that saying goes.
Well, yes, no. What I'm saying is, learning from your own failures, like, isn't always the best way. Like, why not learn from somebody else's failures and then not do them and learn quicker?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like, I see what you're saying.
If you've, you know, were in my industry and I wanted to start a business, and then I go and talk to you and you're like, yeah, but by the way, don't do this, this, and this, because it's going to really screw you up for the next 6 months, and it's going to take way longer. Well, then I go, oh, great. Yeah. It's way better for me to have done that and learned it from you than it was to go screw it up and take 6 months longer to learn it myself. Like, it may have been more ingrained in my mind because I really had to go through it, but like, it's kind of a stupid way to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I totally see what you're saying, which is why I feel like a lot of courses can be really good. And whenever you have like collaborative efforts and like, sometimes Facebook groups can be good. Like, I'm in some Facebook groups that are really nice because I don't have to sit there and research the internet. I can just go on there, ask somebody, be like, hey, has anybody experienced this issue? Exactly. And sometimes they're like, yeah, this is what you did. And that actually happened to me recently with an editing thing. I was like, I can't for the life of me figure this out. And then somebody was like, yeah, this is what you did. I'm like,
There you go.
That just saved me. I just wasted 3 hours on Google. You know.
Yeah.
So, have you inspired anybody to pursue owning a business or starting something? Like, has anybody kind of used you as like inspiration or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I actually have one friend, shout out Taylor.
Oh yeah, Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know that I'm like, you know, like his inspiration necessarily,
Take full credit.
but I remember talking with him a lot and kind of in the process of him being like, well, I want to do this. I kind of want to branch out on my own.
Yeah.
But I'm stuck here and all this stuff. And, you know, and it was really cool getting to talk with him and explain to him like, or, you know, share with him what I kind of did and, you know, hope it helps kind of thing. And talk with him about certain things he was trying to do. And we're in like vastly different industries, but a lot of the concepts are the same. And, you know, we sat at our church's cafe a couple weeks back and just talked about where we were both at, you know, and I don't know that I taught him anything, but it was just like through talking with our experiences and what we're learning and how we're, you know, taking on different things. Like it was really cool. Like I left going, man, that was like, I got filled up by it. And I was like, hey, I need to practice this. Like he said this and I was like, dang, I need to work on that. And so I took it, you know? So like yeah, I think that's kind of the cool part about it is when you're around somebody that has that same mindset, it's not always just a, you give me stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when we talk, like when you and I talk, when we talked the other night until 9:30 in the parking lot after church and we left and and it's like, it's so funny. It happens so many times because Rachel's very introverted and I'm very extroverted.
Yeah.
And we left and she's like, I'm tired. Like I'm done. I'm ready. And I'm like, I am so amped. I am ready, man.
Yeah.
Like, and I talked the whole way home and she was just like, oh my gosh, you got to stop hanging out with Jake.
That's hilarious.
But it's true when you're around as somebody like that. It's just it gets you going and you bounce ideas off each other, and it's just it's really cool. So he was one person that and I've seen him now. He's going, man, and he's doing great, and he's like starting his own thing. He's got a guy working for him, and it's just
that's really impressive.
And it's really cool to see how he's developing and growing and learning a lot through it. And him and his wife really do it together. And me and my wife work together, and you and your wife work together, and it's really cool how
it's awesome,
you know, to see that, because so many people think it's like you got to separate it, or like we do our separate things, and you know whatever. And to be fair, like maybe certain couples you probably should do that, but it is really cool, like working together and you know, and getting to live life together and work together and build something together.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool. I think I really like that about entrepreneurship too, is how you can like kind of inspire other people, and it's like it's very motivating, you know, and I really like being around people with that mindset, and I really think it's important to be around people like that. And then oh man, there's something I was gonna say, I don't remember, but here's something I was thinking about earlier. And at some point we have to wrap this up and like figure out how to like bring this to a close. But I wrote down family and risk. Why did I write that down? Oh yeah. So here's something that I thought was, I think this is a huge benefit, and this kind of goes into like a little bit of a deeper topic that expands past entrepreneurship and things like that. It can kind of go like a very spiritual way and political, but so I wrote down family plus risk, not plus risk, but just family and risk. So I wrote that down because I was thinking about this. One of the things, like I feel like it's really important for people to have like a solid family. And I feel like if you have like a really solid family, like it's amazing, because you can take like much larger risks, you know, like, because in starting my business, I was thinking about this. I was like, worst case scenario, and this is an absolute privilege. Not everybody has this, but I was like, worst case scenario, I could always I got home, you know, I got my family. I could just, if things go really bad, like the worst possible scenario, as embarrassing as it would be, you know, have to just move back home and
Yeah.
just until I can get my feet up again and things like that. And I think I was thinking about that the other day, and I think there's so many benefits to having a solid family and like the nuclear family. It's really sad to see how the nuclear family has been kind of like abandoned, you know, and and that's something I'm really appreciative of, and I think it's super important from a spiritual perspective, and I think it just benefits society as a whole, and it means that I can try things and fail and not be super scared.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you feel like that kind of helped you, like with your motivation to do the businesses, like worst case scenario, move back home or anything like that, or?
Yeah, well, so at the point that I started my business, I was already married.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be honest, my parents, if it really went south, they would probably take me back home.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely had that same kind of backup. Like my wife's family, awesome family, mine too. We had the support. They all live very close.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, there was some times where, you know, my family, my parents especially, like helped us out financially, you know, and it's not like they were just giving me like big loans of money or anything, but like they were there to help. They would, you know, have us come detail the car and just like to give us a job and do different things like that. And, so yeah, I definitely had that. We both had that backup. And like you said, if it really went south, we could have, but like, to have the support really helps too, because it gives you a little bit more confidence.
Yeah.
To have people who believe in you and who are like, hey, you got this. Like, I know you can do it. It gives you the confidence to be like, all right, even if that had to be an option, like we're not going to get there because we're going to figure this out, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think, it's, my family's, they've always been very supportive, and, I've been really appreciative of it. Although I do feel like I need somebody against me. You know, I can't.
To make a really good story.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have to have something. It's like sometimes it's like people are too. They believe in me too much.
They're like, I'm really not this good. Why?
Yeah. First of all, I feel like there's this like expectation that I'm like freaking guru, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. But it's also like, you know, I feel like it benefits to have somebody who's like kind of betting against you, just to give a little bit more motivation. Because I don't know, there's this I guess that's not a good example, but there's this cool example that Jordan Peterson gave, and it doesn't really relate directly to this, but he was talking about an experiment that these people did, where they put cheese in like this tube or whatever, like, and they had to like find the cheese, I guess. So these rats had like a goal, obviously find the cheese, whatever your cheese is, and they would time it, and then they would time it how fast it took them to get to the cheese, like when there's like a cat in the room that they could see, or something like that, and it was like they would find it much faster. And he was saying that it always helps to have a goal, you know, but to have something, it helps to have something to go towards, but it also helps a lot to be running away from something. Like you'll go faster if there's something you're running away from, or like you're fearing, you know, which is, I don't want that to be taken in the wrong way, but like fear, like for example, you could use it like the fear of God. You don't want to disappoint God, you know. So couple the fear of God and then something you want to pursue, and then it's like get there much faster, you know. I don't know, but that's kind of just a random little rant.
It's like when I was playing lacrosse, you know, you'd be dead tired after even just a few minutes of playing midfield, and then as soon as you get the ball and someone's chasing you, all of a sudden it was like I wasn't concerned about how tired I was when I was booking from one side of the field to the other. It's
like a deeper like energy that you draw from.
Oh crap, I gotta go. Like this dude's about to hit me. Like I gotta get running, and I would go. And then as soon as I threw the ball, as soon as I passed it, it was like, and then it all hits you, and you realize how tired you are.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is, it's good to have. You have to have a goal, but it's also good to have something you're running away from, you know, like something you don't like. I don't want, if I don't do this, I like this is going to happen and I can't let that happen. So I have to do this.
It's like a driving force. It's like, in some ways, it's almost a goal in itself. You know, this is my goal I want to get to, but my goal is also not to go back to this.
Yeah.
It's like you have a driving force from behind and a driving force pulling you forward. And, you know, that goal might, or that not necessarily fear, but that like, that driving force behind you might be like, well, I don't want to go back to my job. You know, I got to make this work. This is my goal for my business, but there's no way I'm going back to that.
I would say that's actually kind of been one of the things with me is when I started up, there's lots of reasons to pursue what I was trying to do and starting my business, but there was also more reasons to pursue it because of what I didn't, because of what would happen if I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, because like pursuing that has its benefits, but pursuing it to combat what I don't want to happen if I don't, you know, then it's like it was a big thing. Like I didn't want to go back to my job. Actually, that's the story of how I started is like a really interesting thing, but that'll be another day. If I haven't already made it its own thing.
Yeah.
But and I asked you earlier if you inspired anybody because I've inspired certain people to be entrepreneurial or start businesses, and it's been kind of disappointing sometimes, you know, because there's some people who think that like entrepreneurship is like this just like anybody can do it. You can just hop in and
it's like a job. I'm just going to apply. I'm going to get the job, and then I'm just going to make some money.
Yeah, I'm just going to like screw off all day and do nothing and make money. And then, you know, I feel like people think sometimes it's easier than it is. And so I've inspired some people to like kind of pursue it. And I'm like really rooting for them. Like, yeah, I'll help you. And I'm like getting them going. And then and then they just give up. They don't go anywhere because it's harder than what they thought. Yeah. You know, and it was a little, you know, but it's whatever. I'm not gonna expose who it was. Alexis. Alexis. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, and then another thought I had, you know, famous words from my favorite person on planet Earth, Conor McGregor. This is something he said that I thought it was really cool. He was talking and he was kind of explaining like his motivation, and he said that there's so many people that believe in him that it's almost a disservice to those people to not pursue what he's pursuing because of all the people who are supporting him. And I think that's something I experience in my circle is there's so many people that support me and want to see me do well, and that really is like a driving factor to like keep going, and I think it's good. And then so I guess I'm not really sure how to wrap this up. How do we come to a conclusion? What's the conclusion? Okay, let's in the next 5 minutes let's recap what we've
okay, deal. I'll tell Rachel 5 minutes.
Oh, is she like
she's picking me up because we the van's at the shop, so we only have one vehicle. So
okay.
So we're going to our parents' house for dinner. So
ooh, what are you guys having? Can I have
burgers?
some?
I'm starving. Nice. The only thing I've had is a tiny peanut butter and jelly sandwich ever since 9 a.m.
You made a tiny one, or it was just you just made a little?
Well, Rachel made bread, and we were down to the last part of the bread, and it like tapered. So my peanut butter and jelly sandwich was like this big.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Wait, so that's like the end of the bread, like the part that people hate.
Kind of, but it's the bread just tapers out because she made it, and it's
the
loaf.
She made it.
Yeah, the loaf goes like this.
I see. Yeah.
So the end pieces, like the last 5 pieces, are like this big.
They're teeny. Yeah, they're like
it was adorable.
What you would get at a restaurant when you're sitting down, like the little.
It's like the Crustables or whatever those nasty things are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So recap. Well, I guess that depends on whether you're gonna make this a whole thing or you're already at 2:30. I don't think that's gonna be one episode.
I don't think so.
I don't know how you're gonna split that up.
Here's what I'll say. I'll just say, thanks, Blake, for joining the podcast. I think we'll end here. I actually seen that a lot on a podcast where they don't really have like a super specific end. They just kind of like
Music starts coming in, and then
yeah,
it's
they're just like, all right, well, thanks for coming on. Like
yeah. That's how Nick Bears are all the time. He's like, well, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it. It's like, yeah, thanks for having me.
yeah.
That's it.
All right, maybe we'll do that.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks, Blake, for coming on and talking with us.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome.